Okay, yeah, we are live. So you guys can start now.
All right, awesome. All right. Well, hey everyone. I'm Berk. I'm the co-founder of Nerdy Joy. I'll talk a bit about Nerdy Joy first, and then we can get into the discussion. Now, Nerdy Joy teaches lessons from nonfiction books and has a community of passionate learners, just like you guys. We interact in productive discussions and help each other with our goals and ambitions. Now, we're an award-winning platform with investors like the International Trade Council. I'd love to answer any questions you have about Nerdy Joy. And as you can see, we linked our website in the chat, so you can become you can register, and then you'll be able to also review or view the book reviews and lessons we have. All right. Now, does anyone have questions about what we exactly do? Okay. Now, all right. If no one has any questions or comments, we can go ahead and
I
get.
had one.
Okay. Yes.
How frequent are the books available as such?
Do you mean how many lessons we have in total?
Yeah, and how frequently do you put them?
Yeah, so we have around 130 lessons nearly, and it's increasing almost every day. We have contributors, we have content producers that help us create content on nearly a daily basis. So yeah, we create content as often as possible, and we have around more than 130 lessons at the moment.
Okay. Okay.
That's really awesome.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I see that a few new people have joined. Welcome, everyone. We're getting started on the discussion, so you've not missed anything yet. All right. I sent the link in the chat. You guys can go ahead and click on that, and it'll direct you to a guest page. Once you register, you'll be able to view the review of how to win friends and influence people, and then we'll go over the lessons one by one. Does that sound good to everyone?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah. Let me know when everyone is ready and has the book review set up so we can get started.
Maybe you can share the screen so that we all can see it.
Yeah, sure. That works too. All right. Let's see. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Not
Yes.
yet.
Yes, I
Not yet.
can.
Okay, you can. All right.
I can.
Um,
Right.
I, I
One
cannot
minute.
actually. I can just see BL. What about everybody else?
Oh, I can't see anything. Only the BL. I can only see the BL.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. Hold on. Let me try it again. Do it again. Um. Contact.
I think Aman, you have some noise. Can you?
Yes, yes, sorry.
Okay. Does it work now?
No, Lee. No.
So
Hmm.
it says participant has stopped the camera, and it does say that you're trying to share screen, but there's some network connection lost. That's what it's saying.
Interesting. Then I'm guessing everyone's gonna have to open it up on their own, and then we can go, or
Okay,
someone else.
I'll try opening. Yeah, I'll try doing that. Just a minute.
Okay,
Oh, you
cool.
can. Yeah, you can continue.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm assuming everyone is ready and has seen the link in the chat. Has everyone been able to see it?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right. Then we'll go ahead and start. So the first lesson that is mentioned in the book is, if you, and the name of it was in the book. It's quite interesting. If you want to gather honey, don't kick over the beehive, which basically translates to don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Now, before I get into how this exactly applies, does anyone have any thoughts on this lesson? All right. Well.
Oh, I have one. What's the lesson about?
Right. Okay. So I'll elaborate on that immediately. Okay, so basically, it talks about how, as people, we resent criticism and people complaining, and I believe everyone has experienced that. You try to persuade someone or you try to convince someone, and while doing so, if you criticize them or if you condemn them, if you tell them, "Oh, your opinion's wrong," they're gonna fire back, right? They're not gonna really like that. And so that's basically the lesson. It says, if you want to persuade, if you want to convince, just don't ever, condemn, criticize, or complain. Don't say you're wrong. Don't treat them like a fool. And one of the examples it uses, or the story it uses, is there's this engineer that is in charge of safety. And so what this engineer basically does is he sits in the control room and watches the engineers in the field as they go about doing things. And so his first initial approach to engineers that don't wear safety equipment was saying, "Hey, why aren't you wearing equipment? Why aren't you following the guidelines?" And he'd complain and he'd, condemn them and he'd criticize them. And so the answers he got weren't very well. People hated him for it, and they'd accept what he said for a time, for maybe a few minutes, and then when he was not looking, they'd take the equipment off. And generally, it created friction in the relationship. Now, after seeing this, the head engineer, he says, "Okay, well, I need to change my approach." So what he does next is he this time says, "Hey, do you mind wearing the safety equipment? It's for your own safety and health, well-being." And so in this approach, when he's more sweet and he doesn't treat the other side like a fool, people actually start to listen to him, and they're like, "Oh, okay, I'll go in and wear it," and there's no friction in the relationship. Um, I'd love to hear everyone's thought or how you can, relate to this lesson. Anyone can go ahead and speak up.
I just wanted to ask one small thing. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay, great. So regarding this, I just feel that even though like I mean it's right that you do not shouldn't be criticizing or condemning people like that, but then isn't like when I read this book, I just felt that there's a something called constructive criticism. So how does one I mean like we can I'm not saying to criticize as such, but if somebody's doing wrong, right, how do you like really maintain that balance? We can't
Right.
be
Yeah.
all goody all the time, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm personally against sugarcoating things. Sometimes you do need to be ruthlessly honest, but it's not in our nature to do so. And I love this example Dale Carnegie uses where he says, "Well, yes, we all believe that the other side can be a fool, but," he says, "if you ask a policeman, if the mafia isn't wrong, the police will say, yes, we condemn them, they're violent, they're bad." But if you ask the mafia, their answer would be like, if you ask the mafia, "Hey, are you in the wrong? Or do you think this, violence and all of this evil can be justified?" What they'll say is, or, say some mafia member kills a police officer, their answer will probably be like, "I was defending myself. Oh, I was raised like this. Violence is required." I was listening to Pablo Escobar's Hitman a few days ago, and he's like, "Where we come from in Colombia, guns and violence is a part of who we are." And so that's how they justify it. And if you go ahead and attack that, they're like, "Oh, this guy's a fool." And it just creates that friction. So to answer your question, forming the ideal balance is really just one pointing, and the next lesson is actually give honest and sincere appreciation, and then alongside that lesson, further more, in the other lessons it teaches, which is, I believe, in another chapter. He says, if you, Dale Carnegie states that if you want to point to someone's mistake, try and mention yours own first. And so I saw this in many seminars, especially a few days ago. I attended one where people would show their pitch decks. And so the presenter or the organizer, Steve Austin, before criticizing the pitch deck itself, he'd say, "Oh, I made these kind of mistakes first," and he'd mention how when he got started, he would make all these mistakes, or how people he worked with made the mistakes. So he showed that it wasn't just them, right? He alleviated that feeling of guilt towards, or the feeling you'll get like when someone criticizes your work. It basically prevents the person being criticized from feeling like what they have done is abysmal. They'll know that it's natural to make those mistakes. And so another one is give honest and sincere appreciation, as the next lesson states, which is like state the positives first. Tell them that it's good. What they have done is good, but it could be improved. And so, yes, you shouldn't sugarcoat things, especially in cases where you need to be handling things honestly. But you need to, take it lightly, and be careful not to really be too harsh. You need to find the balance between being very soft and gentle and being like Gordon Ramsay. I bet all of us have seen him, and when you go into
Yeah.
the kitchen, it's quite cruel. So it's like, it's gonna hurt. I mean, like, receiving criticism hurts all the time, but at least it alleviates some of that pain.
Yeah. I just had something to add. Sorry, you go ahead.
Okay, okay. Thanks. And are you saying like Gordon Ramsay is bad or cruel? What's your thought about Gordon Ramsay?
Right. So, well, I mean, I think he has really. I mean, he's an entertainer at the end of the day, and his
He's
show is entertaining because he can be authentic. I mean, if you write kitchen shows or cooking shows, you're gonna get a ton of results. But Gordon Ramsay is able to stand out because, unlike other chefs, he is an entertainer. He's able to become cruel, and he's ruthlessly honest, and that's why people love him. Yeah. However, he's not to be idolized. That's all I can say. If you want to be a great leader, you should not be idolizing Gordon Ramsay. Good entertainer. He creates great content, and I admire him for that because he's been able to stand out and become authentic when other chefs are sugarcoating things because they don't want to be ridiculed for being cruel. Gordon Ramsay, a few days ago, I saw a clip where a blind girl attended Kitchen Nightmares, and Gordon Ramsay just attacked her for not being able to be organized. And
What?
yeah, he was like, "Well, we don't make exceptions. We don't make exceptions for you or blind people or disabled people. This is Kitchen Nightmares, and we like great performance." And that's entertainment. Now, I don't know how real those things are, since in the world of entertainment, a lot of things are superficial. But I mean, what he does is for entertainment. So in real life, thinking about it, you should never criticize those people. And I think a lot of people do have that kind of resentment towards him because he's so cruel. And in real life, as a leader, he'd probably struggle.
I think he does that, for because he's kind of, I mean, people in these entertainment industries, they become, it's very important to have a character. And
Yeah.
if because you need to sell in the end, right? And I mean, you need to capture the eyeballs, and I think somewhere down the line, there might be a time when he completely lost it or something, and because of that, he, like, he just carried it on. I think sometimes I feel that he might have had been told to behave like that, because I've seen his interviews. He seemed pretty much calm and cool, but I don't know why he behaved like that during the shows. But anyway, yeah, that's just the point. Also, I had something to add. Like yesterday itself, we were watching this short film called Validation, and it's one of the best short films. So I would definitely recommend everybody check it out. So in there, it was about somebody giving these validation parking tickets. He was validating the parking tickets, and along with that, he was also sharing the what you say, giving compliments to everybody who was in the line. And of course, soon he became popular and everything. And like he was becoming popular and all. And but basically the basic premise of the short film was that even though even though you give appreciation to random people or pass on compliments and everything, uh like true appreciation really comes when it comes from people who really matter to you. And like we had a discussion yesterday, so just I wanted to add about that for the second lesson. That is, the big secret of dealing with people.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah. Does anyone else want to add on the first lesson, or any thoughts, maybe things you want to add?
Yeah, I would like to add a point over here. So I feel when we criticize somebody, when we actually find the mistakes of others. So when we find the mistake of others, then we try to criticize them. Now the first lesson states that if you stop criticizing and then if you try to analyze them, then I think there is a very good room for development. Let me tell you an example. When I and my sister were like trying to book a ticket, then she got confused between 13 is nothing but 1 p.m, but then she confirmed it as 3 p.m. So instead of laughing or instead of criticizing her, same way exactly, even I have told the same story. Somewhere in my childhood, even I used to confuse between the timelines, where I used to confuse between PM AM and all. So she started open up, okay, then she understood the mistake. And till now, whenever we had this funny conversation, then I remind her, you used to confuse with 1 p.m and 13 1 p.m and 13. So this sort of when I stopped criticizing, I thought there is very good room for development, even minimizing the mistakes or trying to develop. So instead of criticizing, when we understand the mistake, what I would like to say, the root cause of the mistake, then I think that there is a very good room for development in most of the cases.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, that's why Dale Carnegie says, instead of criticizing, I mean, he says, and I think this was his exact quote. I apologize if I can't get it accurately. And he says, any fool can condemn, criticize, and complain, but and most fools do. But it takes a real smart man, or I believe it was man. I apologize if I'm getting this wrong, but he says it. But it takes a real intelligent person to really understand others, and have empathy for them. And doing that is way more interesting and fascinating, because you get to understand people, and you get to really yeah, you get to really understand them, and as you mentioned, have room for create room for development. So I definitely do agree on that, and that's a great point.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, does anyone else have anything else to add? If not, all right, I guess we can go to the next one. Right. So the next one is give honest and sincere appreciation. Now with this, one of the things, I believe it was in this lesson or chapter, where Dale Carnegie talked about how you could get, or how you could gain more friends in 2 months by being interested in them and by listening to them. Then you would gain friends in 2 years by talking about yourself and constantly trying to mention yourself. So it's like, give them the sincere and honest appreciation they deserve. And one of the quotes used to enforce this was by, I believe, a philosopher. I don't remember his exact name, but it went a little like, the deepest principle of humans is the desire to be appreciated and the desire to feel important. And he says, and he goes on to give an example of how our ancestors did a lot of things because they wanted to feel important and they want to feel like they were contributing to society. Like, just think about how we view Elon Musk or Steve Jobs. We view them as these pioneers who have built a better world for us, or trying to do so. In Elon Musk's case, I mean, that's not the view everyone has, but one could say that one of their desires is to just feel important. It's one of the deepest principles of humans. So, uh, do you guys agree, or do you think it's far fetched from reality? I'm guessing the silence means everyone.
There's nothing wrong in appreciation, right? See, when you find something, I think there is one example where Dale Carnegie mentions in the book when he finds some receptionist, she's completely pissed off with something, but then he goes to her and he appreciates few things. Then immediately she comes back to the normal, and she's like, okay, her routine has now changed because of the small appreciation by Dale Carnegie. I think there is nothing wrong in appreciation,
Yeah,
and it's always good, right, when you find some positiveness in the people and go to them, admire it, and then tell them. I think that might make their day, or you never know what person might be going, right? We
definitely.
might, yeah, we might be talking happily, but then there are so many things happening background in our whole lives. Nothing, I feel it's important somewhere that when you go to the person and talk to them or just appreciate what you find, like, it's really give them a credit for what they are doing. Completely
Yeah.
agree with what.
Yeah, I mean, as a business owner myself, whenever I go to tell the idea to someone and they praise it and they're like, "Oh, I love how Nerdy Joy works. I love the idea," it makes my day. Right? It's like coming from personal experience. It just lights me up and it motivates me to do more. And yeah, I totally agree with you that appreciation could seem trivial, but especially it was in the Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, where Stephen Covey, the author, says, the essentially the small things, the small kindnesses, and the small surprises in relationships are essentially the big things, right? And they create the bigger picture in the relationship. So, and if you surprise your partner every day, maybe one day you make a dinner for them, right? Or you make a you create, or you cook for them, or you give them flowers once in a while. You surprise them. Those small kindnesses that really contribute to building that healthy relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, just a side note here, I think How to Win Friends and Influence People has a lot of great stories. It has lots of great studies, analogies, stories, and I'm honestly a big fan of the book itself. However, one thing I'd say is it's quite overwhelming to read books, and that's like the whole reason behind Nerdy Joy. We want to bring those in sort of easy to digest, short and entertaining stories. So if you guys are interested in learning more, you can register on the website. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked here. All right. If anyone has any other notes on the second lesson, I'd love to hear them. And if not, we can move on to the third one. All right. So, does anyone have anything to add?
No, I think we can move on.
Okay. All right. Awesome. I think someone said they want to speak, but I'm not sure if they're gonna actually speak. Mumal, was it you that I think said they want to speak? No. Okay. All right. Well, all right. We can move on to the third one. Arousing, he who can do this as a whole world with him, arousing the other person eager want. Honestly, I have to go back to my notes to read more about this, but essentially, it's really, again, just trying to get people to be excited about it, excited about what you're doing, excited about what you're selling if you're a salesman. And I believe it was a story of Dale Carnegie mentioned the story of two salesmen, where it was like one of them approached two clients they had. Hold on, was it this? Let me think about it. Yeah, I think it was the story of the two salesmen. I kind of get confused with the stories because there's a lot of good ones in every single lesson. And so he mentioned the story of two salesmen where one approached a client and he was like, "Hey, we just launched this new service. Are you interested?" He does the generic salesman uh thing where he's like, "Hey, we just launched this," and he's sort of just boring. And the client does not end up converting or buying the product, so he ends up failing. And the other salesman approaches the client and he's like, "Hey, we just launched this new product. This can help you with this. It'll add value to this." And he says, "Hey, I'm gonna send you someone right away today." And so he arouses an eager want in the person. He plays to their desires and fantasies, and he sort of gets that. And so this really depends on your situation. I don't think there's really just a set tactic for this. I think the best thing to get that desire going is to just like, um, trying to show them how it's going to add value to them. Like, for example, with Nerdy Joy, what we do to, essentially get users to sign up is say, "Hey, books are tough to get through, and a lot of information we learn, we don't remember it. That's why our lessons are effective. They provide you with a great learning experience, and they're gonna help you improve your life, and all these lessons are life changing because we pick the lessons that are gonna be truly beneficial." And the client's like, "Oh, I could learn how to become wealthy from experts like Robert Kiyosaki without reading the 300-page book." And they're gonna be like, "Oh wow, now I can do it." So that's sort of a real life strategy for doing it. So it really depends on your ability to present and persuade. And does anyone have anything to add? Or do you think the lesson was clear here, or was I able to articulate it?
Yeah, I think it's clear. It's uh, especially for business. It's very not just for business, but even if you want to get something done, it's very important to think what the other person really wants, and because everybody thinks about themselves in the end of the day. Everybody thinks that how is this product going to be beneficial to me. Um, so yeah, I mean, I read a lot of business books, so this is something that is always repeated. In that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's really important to just get those track that attention and show them that they're it's gonna add value to them. And I think we could get sidetracked and talk about adding value and value propositions and everything. But I think a lot of people here aren't really affiliated with companies and whatnot, or selling at least. So I think we could skip this for now. Or if does anyone else want to make any comments on it? All right, I'm guessing not. All right, then let's go down to the part 2 of the book, which is 6 ways to make people like you. And the first one is do this and you'll be welcomed anywhere, which is become genuinely interested in other people. Now, in this case, instead of using a story from, actually, I'll use a story from the book. I believe it was Theodore Roosevelt who, whenever he had guests, what he did was he had researched what their interest was. Say he was gonna have a guest the next day, and his guest was really interested in penguins, right? Or penguin anatomy, to be very clear, right? Or detailed. And so what he'd do is he'd pick up a book or a few books and he'd read about the topic they were interested in. And so when he got when he met the guest the other day, the day afterwards, he they'd be surprised by how much he's interested in, how much he knows about the topic they love and they're passionate about. So his guests would, he would leave a better impression with his guests, and that would help him network. That help him, persuade people. Because imagine this: if you say went into a sales meeting, right? You are a client and you go into a sales meeting, and the salesman starts talking about, or knows, about your biggest passions. I think all of us would inevitably get excited. It's like, oh, you're also interested in sweet potatoes. Let's talk about it. And you form that connection. So I think this is a great way for forming relations and, I guess, making new friends. Does anyone agree or have any comments to add?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just a random point. Like, basically, don't you think that when, I mean, becoming genuinely interested, but sometimes people just take it in the wrong way, right? Especially for girls. So it becomes very weird, like, to have to maintain a fine balance, I guess.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, you can't be like, you can't take it to a creepy degree where it's like, hey, I know you're interested in shoes, the sweet potatoes, the Smurfs, and Netflix, and binging Netflix shows. That's like taking it to an extreme degree. So just like everything in life, it's important to form that balance. Not to take it to a degree where the clients or whoever you're meeting is like, okay, so you stalked me online. Yeah, so it's not that smart to do it that way. Yeah. Yeah, does anyone else have anything to add on to this? Do you maybe agree or disagree with it? I'm guessing not, so we can move on in that case. Okay. Now, the second lesson from part 2 is a simple way to make a good expression. That is to smile. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. If you smile, people are going to associate happiness with you, and thus, you're going to have people that like you, and people that think you're, I guess, not interesting, but yeah, you're gonna leave a good impression. I mean, just think about it this way: if you met two people and one of them were very happy and they smiled at you, and the other one was sort of just like boring and not very fun, I mean, which I'm guessing, or I'm assuming, everyone would pick the one that smiled. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty clear. Right. Does anyone have anything to add? Do you agree or disagree? Okay. From the silence, I'm guessing no one has anything else to add. Right. Um, then let's move on to the third one, which is, if you do not do this, you are headed for trouble, and that is remembering the person's name. And according to Dale Carnegie, the sweetest and most important sound in any language to a person is their name, and I think one could agree. I mean, it's like personalization and really getting to form that connection is really important. And while this is not a story from how to win friends and influence people, Ray Kroc, who is the founder of McDonald's, one day he goes to a client, and his client says, "Hey, I'm not interested in buying from you anymore." Ray Kroc was a paper cup salesman. And so he goes to the client, and the client declines to buy again from him. And so Dale Carnegie goes away, and then he goes around, he tries to sell the paper cups, and then he decides to return to that store, to the shop owner, and he wants to sell the paper cup and hopefully try again in the sale. And this time, the shop owner decides to buy his paper cups, and Dale Carnegie says, "Hey, why did you decide to buy it?" And no, not Dale Carnegie. Ray Kroc asks the shop owner, "Why did you
But
decide to buy
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but can I leave?
Sure. Yeah.
Bye bye.
Right. Bye.
Everyone.
So Dale Carnegie, I mean Ray Croc's, and then the shop owner points to a kid, and he's like, the kid told me that you were the only one that created genuine connections between, that really got to know his clients, and so that's why I chose to work with you, and so that kind of shows how building those personal relationships and remembering their names is good for business and generally making good impressions and on people.
Yeah, this is very important. I don't remember whether Dale Carnegie has mentioned in this book or I read somewhere. See, now we are understood that knowing the other person's name is very important when we start conversations or when you come to the business or whatever. But there is this one hack. If you forget the name of the other person, just ask them what's your Instagram handle name or what's your Facebook name, or does
Yeah,
that.
I've seen that. Yeah.
I think that this sort of small trick will be really helpful. It's not necessary that we keep remembering everybody's names. So you might remember the name, but then there might be a little confusion. So this trick might come in handy when the this type of situations. So just ask them what's your Facebook name again, or what's your Instagram handle name. So I just want to add for this chapter. Oh yeah, this point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's great, and I'd love to hear more from you because I mean I think that comment is very useful for a lot of people because it's quite hard to remember names, especially when you're a power networker. Right. I
Can I
guess we
add
can.
something here? Can I add something here?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah. So, what's in a name? That what we call by a rose by any other name would smell just as sweet. But I changed this to say, what's in a name? That what we call a thorn by any other name would prick just as hard. Now, what I'm trying to say is that if you don't get a person's name right, what happens is you ring the wrong bells when you try to communicate with them. I was once anchoring some program and I got the lead person's name wrong. It was slightly wrong, but it was wrong. And after that day, that lead person would not speak to me with a straight face. So that's when I learned my lesson that you have to remember names, and there are tricks by which you can remember names. One, of course, is to ask point blank as to what your Facebook name is. But nowadays, even Facebook names can be contorted. So you can never be sure. I used to use something like, how do you spell your name? So that was the best or the easiest way to get to know the other person's name. And I have realized that a name is so really important for us that calling a person and saying that you have a very common name is the worst thing to say. What we normally say is you have a very popular name. For people's names which are very common, one says you have a very popular name. And if the name is unique, anyways, one can say it is unique. So that's my 2 cents on this particular point.
Amazing. I mean, I'm very glad to hear from you, and I think that's very informative. Thank you for sharing. I mean, yeah, I definitely
Thank
do
you.
agree with that. Yeah, and that's why in a lot of cases I try my best to pronounce names right, even if I remember them. Sometimes I'm afraid I might not be able to pronounce them. So, yeah, although I remember them, sometimes I'm afraid of that, which is a bit of a problem when it comes to names. But I think you could ask them, or I think that also be a good strategy. Like, how do you pronounce your name? And they'd say their name, and you'd be able to remember. I think that would be a good strategy too. Yeah, I feel like that could work. Yeah. Right. So the fourth lesson from part two is an easy. Wait. No. Oh yeah. We haven't gone through that. Right. So an easy way to become a good conversationalist, which is be a good listener, encourage others to talk about themselves. I think we all agree that we all love talking about ourselves and what we do. So when you reverse that and when you really try and listen to people, I think this has two benefits, right? One is a person is going to love you because they get to talk about themselves and you just listen to them. And two, while they're talking about themselves, you're going to get a lot of information about them. I mean, say you want a client, right? You want to convert a client or a user into a client, or just someone into a client. If you're listening to them, you're going to be able to get information you wouldn't be able to get about them otherwise. I mean, because they're just going to go on and on about themselves. And sometimes we get into situations where we just can't control it, right? When someone listens to us, I think we've all experienced this. We're going to just go on and on and on about ourselves, right? And so we're going to give information to them that is valuable. If they're listening, they're going to be able to listen to that information and persuade us with that, right? Because we're giving them what we're interested in, what we care about. And so, especially with like salesmen, that's a very good strategy. So I think there's like those two benefits. Do you guys agree on it? Or, do you have anything to add to it?
Yeah, totally agree.
Awesome. If you have any insight regarding this, I'd love to hear it. Any stories maybe, or your personal experience. All right, I'm guessing not. All right. So the fifth one is talk in terms of the other person's interest. Now, for this, I'm gonna use another story from the Laws of Human Nature. Wait, I think it was that book, right? Was it? Yeah, I believe it's. Oh no, it's the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Right. So in the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, Robert tells the story of how there were two island nations that were about to go to war. And so both of them send diplomats to Athens. The first island goes first. And the first island's like, look, Athens, we've been loyal to you. We've helped you for so long. We've been a loyal, ally to you, and we've helped you in situations. And just imagine how bad it would look if you helped the other side, because the other island nation was Athens' enemy all along history. So they were like, how would it look to your other allies if you refused to help an ally and chose to help a former enemy instead? And the island nation just goes on and on about how it's important to pay your allies back, how it's how it's important to pay back your that gratitude and whatnot. And so the island nation A goes on and on about loyalty and everything, and then the island nation B speaks, and what they say is, hey, Athens, yes, we have not been allies throughout history. We've not been on good terms, and in many cases we went to war. However, we have one of the strongest navies in this, in Greece, or in that area. And they say, with our navy and our army, you're going to be able to scare Sparta, and we can fight them together, right? And so it also mentions how they'll share the gains from that war and everything. And so Athens, at the end, after a lot of debates, with a majority vote, they go with Island Nation B, which said, hey, we've not been allies, we've always been enemies throughout history, but we will help you scare your enemies, and we're going to help you gain more treasure and get more money, right? And so what happened here? What happened here is basically Island Nation B talked in terms of the other's interest, while Island Nation A said, just be loyal to us, man. We already help you. We were your loyal ally. And Athens doesn't care about that, because loyalty does not, improve you. It does not work. It does not fulfill your self-interest. The only thing it does is give you social credit. And that's not a big benefit for some country that's already very strong, right? While on the other hand, they could fight their enemy and scare their enemy, and they could make money. So this is really just about talking in terms of the other's interest and showing and incentivizing them. Does anyone else have any comments on this? Do you agree, disagree? Any insight about this? Um, I'm. Is that no? Okay, if no one has any comments, then I guess we can move on. Okay, so the sixth lesson from part two is make the other person feel important and do it sincerely. With this, I mean, I think this goes back to some of the lessons from earlier, which is just like, make the other person feel important because they're gonna associate happiness and joy with you, and thus you're gonna be able to persuade them and sell things to them way, in an easier manner, and you're gonna have a better relationship because they like you and they enjoy being accompanied by you. Do you guys agree, disagree?
Yeah,
Any
agreed.
agree? Okay, awesome. Do you have any maybe stories about this? Maybe, any experience you had with this where, you made someone feel important and that benefited you, or maybe someone made you feel important?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. I live with my parents, so whenever my mother cooks a beautiful meal or like tasty meal, delicious meal, then I just tell her that how despite being very busy scheduled, and she's taking her time and uh, making this wonderful meals. So I always say that this is I make her feel important, and I tell her so many things that this is better, this is that, this is that. So I find that she feels happy and then she feels satisfied. So it goes with my siblings always. It's my parents for taking time to help me in some other works. So that's what I feel. I make them important. That I tell them every time. Because if it were you, I could have not done that. So it's a genuine appreciation, and I'm really thankful for what they are contributing to my life, or vice versa.
Awesome, awesome. I mean, that's a great story, and I think it is an amazing example of this principle in real life. Yeah. Um, I'll get, we'll do a few more lessons. All right, let's do till lesson 3 of part 3, and then we can, end the discussion, and we can, just, end it there. All right. So part 3, lesson 1, you cannot win an argument, and the lesson here is the only way to get the best out of an argument is to avoid it. Now, there really particularly isn't a story that I can remember about this, but just reflecting on each of us can reflect on what we lived through. I mean, 8 out of 10 arguments we indulge in do not produce productive results for us. I mean, say you get into an argument with your friend about the best soccer team. I mean, even if you win, it's not going to make you happier. It's not going to improve your life. I mean, actually, vice versa. If they can win it, maybe it's gonna. Well, actually, yeah, it's just in your best interest not to even engage in those arguments. You'll live a peaceful life, and you won't have to deal with people trying to be arrogant and narcissistic. So yeah, I mean, just avoiding those. Any comments, questions, concerns? Does everyone agree? All right. I'm guessing everyone seems to like it.
I'll add one little thing here.
Mm-hmm.
In the war of the ego, the loser always wins. That's what I thought actually tied down with this.
Interesting. Do you mind elaborating on
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you're having an argument, it's basically a fight of the egos. And the person who actually lets the other side win is the actual winner, because at the end of the day, you cannot win an argument, as Dale Carnegie says.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's very insightful. Thank you so much for adding that.
Thank
I'm it's really great to hear from you. Yeah. Um. Yeah, right. So the second lesson is, and these are like, have connections between them. Since the book goes step by step, it's like, the only is, avoid arguments, and if you do need to engage in arguments, show respect for the other's opinion. I think we can see this with every great persuader, right? They're not like, you're wrong, you're a fool, you idiot. In that case, it's going to only raise tension, just like we mentioned in the beginning. So the best thing you can do is say, hey, I understand you, and I respect your opinion. And in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, it says, if you want to resolve conflicts, and we actually have a lesson on Nerdjoy about this, it's like, just state your facts, state your side of the story, listen to the other side, and those are like really simple steps for resolving conflicts. And the biggest one is just don't don't give ultimatums, and don't criticize, and show respect. That's how you avoid those major conflicts. I think when we look at most major historic events, right, if we look at, say, World War I, it was really just a petty dispute, not, I didn't say a dispute, but just a series of assassinations that did not really need to cause a war. It was like human rationality and inability to think that led to those, and I think it was, I can't remember I think it was Richard Haas in his book The World mentioned, it's like, he said, we sleepwalked our way into World War II and World War I because we just weren't thinking and trying to understand each other. It doesn't really, I guess, relate to this lesson directly, but it's really just important to form that empathy, because otherwise we're just ruining it for both of the parties, us and them. But yeah, it's important to show that respect, and give them the respect they deserve. Does anyone agree, disagree, or have any insight regarding this? All right. If no one has any stories or insights to share, then I guess we can go on to the third lesson. Right. And with the third one, it's really just, if you're wrong, admit it quickly and empathetically. I think this is like pretty self-explanatory. It's just about, being able to own up to your mistakes and take accountability. And I think having personal integrity at the end of the day will always pay off. Maybe not immediately, but for even like building healthy relationships, people are going to know they can trust you because you take accountability. And I think this ties back to just like being a good person. It's, people we trust in society, and people that end up being rewarded are the people that take accountability and say, hey, I screwed up. This was my mistake. And, I'm sorry for it. And I'm going to try to be better. But yeah, it's really just, about taking that accountability. Does anyone have, any comments on this?
Yeah, I would like to talk about this. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel it's always important to admit our mistakes, right? So we all are human, right? We make mistakes, a lot of mistakes, basically every day on a daily basis. But when you admit the mistakes, and I feel the opposite, the person or whoever might show us a hand to overcome our mistakes or help us in a way so that we cannot make the mistakes again. So it goes with a simple math problem. When we're trying to solve the math problem, it's always a one directional, right? When you always goes in the same following steps. But when you admit it, that you have done some mistake, when you go to teacher, when you go to your friend, then he might tell you a different dimension. Okay, this is the step and this is the way you're thinking, try to think in a different way. So by admitting the mistakes, by telling or going for a counseling, I think that might really be helpful for us in developing ourselves. As we all say, mistakes are what you can say, the by doing mistakes we grow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it I want to add.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I completely agree. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. So we went over, I think, around 10 lessons already. Um, it's been a great session. I hope you guys found it useful. And as I've said in the beginning, if you would like to receive insight from nonfiction books in short, easy to understand, and entertaining posts, then you should definitely sign up for Nerdy Joy. I am gonna be on Merrative, and we're gonna, and Nerdy Joy is gonna host many more discussions. We're gonna host discussions on the lessons we teach, on our book reviews, and on many more. So tune in. And we'll definitely also let everyone know beforehand. And yeah, we're looking forward to the next discussion. I hope all of you received value from today and have learned something. And I have the link of Nerdy Joys already in the chat and link to this session. So if you are interested in learning more or joining a community of passionate learners, definitely check us out. And yeah, I'm your host, Berk Lee, and if you have any questions, you can DM me on. Does Merrative have a messaging feature? If not, I'm not sure if it does. If not, you can message me at burke@nerdyjoy.com. I mean, email me at there, or you can directly contact us through our Instagram page, and we'll be more than glad to assist you with anything you need. And I personally really enjoyed today. So yeah, does anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns before we end the session today?
Yeah, Berk, this is a very good session. I really enjoyed because I read this book a few years back, but then now discussing with you or like remembering the few stories that Dale Carnegie has mentioned in his book, and I feel it's time to reread again. And I just want to add one more thing, that the moment when I read this book, I have gifted this book to my few of my cousins. So I thought this is very good help. This book is really helpful in many ways. Uh, that's it. I just want to like give this book to your near and dear ones. I think this is really helpful and very influential in many ways. Again,
Yeah.
thanks for hosting this call, Burke, and
Yeah.
hoping to see you more lectures from you. I really like the session, and I'm definitely going to see you on nerdy
Thank
joy.
you. Thank you. Yeah, and you can recommend Nerdjoy to your cousins. I think they might particularly benefit from it if they're younger, because we also have a lot of advice on building good relationships and resolving conflicts, and I think a lot of people can benefit from those. So definitely feel free to do them. And hey, if you ever want to connect with me, my email's in the chat. I'd love to talk to you more about things, and things you might want to learn more about. And yeah, before we go, one last final note. What book or what lesson would you be interested in learning more about? Or what should we host next? Is Nerdy Joy.
I feel books on productivity, more efficient in our work life, or balance in our day work life and personal life. I think those type of sessions are very helpful. I feel productivity and balancing the work and personal life. These two things will be very helpful, I feel.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely see what we can do. And yeah, I mean, feel free to again check out Nerdjoy, because we do have a lot of advice on those topics too. And yeah, I hope all of you enjoyed today's session. Thank you so much for coming, and I'll see all of you in our next lecture/session. I'm hoping we can get a bit more engagement and discussion going, because this is scientifically proven that discussing things and lessons improves our retention rate and helps us understand things better. So it's very useful to discuss lessons and information with your buddies and in these kind of discussions. So I'd love to hear more from everyone that hasn't really talked in the session. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone. I'll be here for a few more minutes if any of you want to ask me anything. And yeah, thank you for joining today. I'll see you guys another time.
Berk, how often do you have your sessions?
Right. So these sessions are powered for by Nerdjoy, and we want to have them as often as possible. Now, obviously, right now our team is like very busy building the product and marketing. So I'm the only one who can host these, and my schedule's been quite, I guess, filled up. I'll try my best to host more sessions. Merrative does post them on their social media pages, so you'll definitely be notified when Nerdy Joy is hosting another session. It could be me or another teammate from ours that is representing Nerdy Joy. But yeah, we'll try to host them as soon as often as possible, because I've personally enjoyed